What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm going to talk about Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes. This is a massive Overton window shift for the Republican Party. A lot of people are really excited. A lot of people are upset. I feel like I have a lot of good background info and knowledge on the topic of what's going on here. And just a few weeks ago or months ago, Tucker and Nick were calling each other feds.
A contentious dialogue.
Well, I
for
thought
a
you
long
were
time.
a Fed. I was
and I thought you were a Fed.
I was a Fed.
Yeah.
I'm not a Fed. But whatever. I don't care.
Dude, Tucker cracks me up the way he talks. He's so funny. But yeah, that's what the show's going to be about today. I'm really going to provide a good analysis for the actual podcast itself, and I listened to the whole thing, but also just really behind the layer of what's going on. I think Tucker Carlson is somebody who spent his life in mainstream media. Nick Fuentes is somebody who basically got blacklisted in college for talking about Israel. And even though they're two different people from two different backgrounds, they almost ended up in the same exact spot. And this is a paradigm shifting interview. And like I said, I have a lot of background context and things behind the scenes to really provide for you guys to let you know, like, regardless of what you might think about Tucker or Nick, there are some things that I know for sure are undoubtedly true about how Republican media and politics works. And I think this was long overdue to really shatter the paradigm and basically the control system that they were trying to create, because I don't believe it was for the better. And I'm going to make that case today. Thank you guys for being here. Dreamer Podcast starts now. And shout out to the real MVP who I did this live stream earlier. He said, Anomaly, your mic sounds like garbage. He was right. I didn't realize my thing wasn't plugged in. So Dreamer Podcast starts now, hopefully with good audio.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's up, Brett? What's up, Eddie? What's up, Kirk? Appreciate everybody for being here on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. And listen, we even like the stragglers, people who listen on the podcast later. I mean, if you're here, you're spending this moment with me. What a beautiful moment it is. Thanks for being here. I'm just checking all my things, and I'm going to dive right into it because I have a lot of different things to say about this Fuentes and Tucker interview. One, I'm going to provide an analysis of the actual podcast itself. But perhaps to me, what I'm going to probably start with and then weave my way in and out is really like how historic this moment is and just parts of history that I feel like some people don't realize that are pretty iconic now. I'm going to bring up this tweet from Ben Shapiro in 2016. Regardless of what you think about Nick Fuentes or regardless of what you think about Tucker or Ben, this really is an iconic moment that really preceded how far a lot of people thought about stuff. Most people weren't even thinking about Israel or Ben or, dual loyalty, but apparently Nick was, and apparently Ben was not thrilled about it. So let's check out this historical iconic tweet. Ben Shapiro responds to Nick Fuentes. I don't know what he said because it's not on anymore, but it's from December 24th, a day before Christmas. Nick said, accusing any American Jew who is pro-Israel of being an Israel firster is a pure form of anti-Semitism. So according to Ben Shapiro, and this is, I should probably use a different word besides sneaky, but I'm going to use the word sneaky to describe Ben Shapiro. And I'm sorry if Ben thinks it's hate speech. This is the sneakiness of the Ben Shapiros of the world. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're an America first Jewish person, right, and you love America, I understand being like, hey, don't accuse me of loving Israel more than America. I love America, damn it. Like, I get it. Or even saying most people like me, we love America and we love Israel. But to say it how Ben said it, like you can't accuse a single American person of Ben's ethnicity. Imagine if I'm Italian, I'm Polish, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Czechoslovakian, so you could figure out what I am. I'm not taking one of those DNA tests, but in general, it's like, imagine if I'm like every Italian in America serves America, every single one. It almost seems like you're in on it, Like if people were like, look at those Italians over there that are stealing money and then sending it back to Italy. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Cool your anti-Italophobia, buddy, because all of my racial people, we don't work together, but I provide a blanket shield for all of my people. We all have loyalty to America, every single one of us. Like, that's obviously not true. There's not a single country where every single person in America has more loyalty. Like, every Chinese person in America, every Italian, every Irish, every Jew, it's not true to any ethnic group. You could say most. You could be like, hey, don't just randomly accuse somebody of that. But the sneakiness of Ben Shapiro, like he thinks we don't notice this stuff. It's crazy. I'm going to put it on the screen again because it really does like precede this moment we're at. This is almost 10 years ago now. Ben thinks that you can't accuse one single American Jew, not one single one, not even if they work for an international Jewish organization where they're literally like constantly saying every day that they care about their people worldwide, like as a priority. Even if they say explicitly, Ben thinks that you just can't say it. It's just the sneakiness of this is just through the rails. I can't get over it. It's like I'm part Polish. Every Polish person is loyal to America, not Poland. If any Polish person ever said that, I would be like, that Polish guy is hella sneaky. He must be like working for Poland or something. Like that's where my head would go. Cause it's like, hey, all of my people, we're all loyal to America. Just letting you know, all of us, everyone you see ever loyal to America, dude, that's not true to every Christian. That's not true to every Muslim. That's not true to like, there's no group that like every person is a perfect American citizen. If it were the case, America would be like a thriving, successful country instead of one that a lot of people think is declining. But, let's not pick straws on that. Is that even a thing? Pick straws? Let's not, I don't know, the straw that broke the camel's back, the camel that rode into Saudi Arabia. I don't know what the kids are saying anymore. I think they use Riz. Do I have Riz? Do I got charisma, folks? Anyway, I thought that tweet is an iconic moment of history because I guess Nick at the age of like in his teens or early 20s started noticing dual loyalty between Israel and America. And Ben Shapiro instantly came in to be like, listen, buddy, we all got loyalty to America. You're a bad guy. Don't say that. And that really is like, Nick's story. I'm just going to say this, and I'm not saying this to be like a coward. I'm just letting people know. You could think what you want of Tucker and Nick, right? I have my own opinions. And some people like him. Some people don't. Some people dislike Nick for different reasons than others. They agree with him ideologically, but they don't trust him. I don't care what you do, folks. It's your world. You get to listen to whoever you want. Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But to me, Nick's story really does check out because he was just too early on a topic that no one was really, I don't know, like nobody thought about that in 2016. I mean, let me paraphrase that. A lot of people did, but not nearly the amount. It's like we saw a Republican revolution where people became more conservative, more Christian, more understanding that liberals were lying. And then on top of that Republican revolution, we kind of have like a, deeper Republican revolution where you're like, oh my gosh, Donald Trump is also controlled by the donors. He seems to want a foreign nation to run our Congress. And he literally explicitly said that on a podcast. He thinks that they should run our Congress or that they should control our Congress. And that's like the next step of like the Trump revolution is figuring this stuff out from my vantage point. So Nick was just like, really early on that. And, other stuff he did to piss people off or the direction he went, he kind of played Joker, like he got banned from everything. And, this is kind of just my read on listening to Nick on Tucker. And I've listened to Nick tell his story a bunch of times. You're taking like a highly intelligent guy in Nick. He's super smart. He's clearly a good speaker. He understands politics. Like, in a world where anyone can be in politics, there's nothing really stopping this guy from soaring past most of the competition his age. Like rest in peace, Charlie. But I always hoped that Charlie would debate Nick because I felt like, everyone would talk about Nick, but nobody would talk to Nick. So I just want to make the point that he's highly smart. I think he was interested in mainstream politics and he basically got blacklisted. So it seemed to me like Nick played the Joker character where you're not going to allow me at Prager. You're not going to allow me at Turning Point or Daily Wire. Everybody's talking trash about me. I can't be a politician. They want me to fly to Israel. I might as well play the villain and just go hard in the paint because if I can't enter politics as like a normal person and they're trying to blacklist me, then I guess I have to shift the Overton window towards my views. That's similar to what he said to Tucker. And like I said, I don't necessarily think he's lying because, not to make this about myself, but I do know that does happen. So it's like if I were just watching Nick say that and be like, oh, that didn't really happen to him. He didn't really get blacklisted. They don't really care. It's because he's too mean. I don't think I'm mean. I don't think I'm as edgy as Nick. Maybe I am to some or something, but the same thing happened to me in 2019. And the reason I kind of want to bring this up because it goes hand in hand with Nick. I basically got attached to Nick's brand, even though I didn't even know him, because I was watching the whole thing. I didn't work for Turning Point. I didn't work for Daily Wire. I didn't work for Nick, but I just saw what they were doing, and I felt like Nick's groypers or whatever, he calls his people groypers. They go and ask questions to Charlie. And I found it interesting. I was like, okay, like if you let a liberal ask a question, what's wrong with asking having a far right winger ask a question? Like you're willing to talk to a communist. Why won't you talk to Nick's people? And Charlie, rest in peace. I feel like he got super flustered by that. And honestly, I did feel like some of the questions they were asking were valid. They were talking about demographics. They were talking about, Dan Crenshaw. They were talking about loyalty to Israel. And to me, they were valid questions. And I literally just said that in 2019. I was like, listen, these kids are asking decent questions. The Republicans are passing hate speech laws for Israel. And I got blacklisted in a similar fashion that Nick did. And they used Nick almost like a radioactive human being, like, oh, Nick retweeted you, or you agree with Nick, or you're a groyper. So basically, probably similar to how Nick's career ended in 2016, my mainstream career ended in 2019. I watched the whole thing happen to myself. And I'm going to get back to the analysis of the podcast. And once again, I'm not trying to make this about myself for any other reason besides some other people can't really relate to what Nick went through. And they just think oh, he's lying and this and that. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that probably did happen to him. Everything he said in the first part of the podcast, where it's he's in college, he's on a debate, he's doing really well, they're really interested in him. He starts asking questions about Israel, and now all of a sudden nobody's interested in him. It really does happen like that. It's like Neo in the Matrix. The second you talk about Israel, first it's like if you're a libtard, Nick, I don't think was ever a super liberal or anything, but I saw it from I wasn't left or right, but I was just in the middle of the hip hop world, the entertainment space. And as soon as you become more conservative, it's like the first pill of the Matrix, where then people start acting really weird. And then the second pill is just ask a question about Israel. And then all of your friends on the right, that you're oh, I'm in Prager, I'm here, I'm there. Now that all disappears and you're like, holy crap, what the hell's going on here? It's it's a really weird experience. Let alone for Nick, I'm sure at 20 years old, it had to be extra weird because he's not even that old yet. But that they really do that. I know for a fact that most of Republican politics, especially traditionally, it's almost a loyalty / humiliation ritual. The same way you see the politicians go and kiss the wall. If you won't do certain things, they'll just find someone else to do it. And the music industry, I've seen a little bit into that as well. It operates in the same exact way. It's not as extreme as some people think, where they invite you to a Diddy party necessarily. And it's if you don't do this, you can't get a contract. Maybe that has happened to some people. I can't really speak for everybody. I'm sure there is some of that involved with some of them, but I think everybody tries to Hollywood it in their head to make it be oh, you literally can't get there unless you do that. It's possible, but I think more from what I saw, it was more you talk to record labels, you talk to guys who basically control the matrix, right? Whether they're a big manager or they're connected to, getting distribution, especially back in the day when you got with one of them, you're basically famous or successful. They know all the concert people, they know all the radio people, they have all the money, they have all the music connections. For me, I never got that deep, but it was hey, we like what you're doing. You're very talented. We think you're marketable. You're young. You got weird hair. I think we could sell you whatever. Do this. It's go do this. And then I'm can I do it my own way? Do I have to do that? And it's not like they were telling me to go to Diddy's house or something, but they were dress like this and make a song about this. And I was well, I don't really dress that way. And I don't really make songs about that. Can we can you talk to me like I'm a normal person and maybe we can figure something out together? They're not interested. Same thing with Republican media. I've seen it in multiple different ways, and we'll figure out how deep I want to get into it today. I'll just go with my inspiration and motivation. But it's Republican politics. If you just question Israel in any way, the gates just all close on you. They're oh, dude, come to this Trump event. Come here. I got invited to the White House in 2018. I got to go with the Hispanic coalition because I'm part Puerto Rican or whatever it was, the Latinos. And that was amazing. And people were oh, man, dude, you're going to be such a star, blah, 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 whatever. And then as soon as 2019 came around, I heard what Nick was saying, right? Nick came onto my radar on Twitter. His little groypers and groyperettes were, asking all these questions, acting edgy. And all I was saying was listen, Trump and DeSantis are passing speech laws for Israel. I find that very weird. As soon as I said that, it's game over. It's Mario, you fall off a cliff, you lose all your lives, and nobody wants to talk to you. So I feel that happened to Nick in 2016, and I didn't know Nick in 2016. To be honest, I didn't know Nick in 2019 either. I just saw him, but he just, went that path. They axed his career, and then he figured out a way to stay afloat and be edgy and get people's attention. 2019, I didn't say anything edgy. I didn't say anything rude. I wasn't snarky about it. I just noticed. And that's why people talk about noticing and noticers, because really it feels like the crime is paying attention. It's the same thing that happened to me in the music industry. It's like a humiliation ritual or a loyalty ritual. Will you shut up and not agree with Nick on that topic? Will you ignore Israeli speech laws in America against the First Amendment? Will you fly to Israel? Will you take the trip? Will you go here? Will you talk to this person? Will you do this? And I always said no. It's like, no, I don't want a trip to Israel. No, I don't want to stop talking about the speech laws, because it bothered me at a fundamental level. I already was disgusted by the left because they're idiots. And then you come to the right and you're like, oh, these people really believe in free speech. Oh, maybe I am Republican. Maybe I am conservative. Like I believe in free speech. I don't want the government to take our guns. I don't like taxes. Maybe I am a Republican. Maybe I'm a libertarian. I don't know what I am. I'm trying to figure it out. I like Trump. And then you realize that people in the Republican Party, they don't actually believe in free speech. As Turning Point and Daily Wire and PragerU are telling you about what First Amendment warriors they are, they're simultaneously not talking about these Israeli Jewish International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance speech laws, the IHRA speech laws that are being passed into legislation in almost every state. Trump passes them through executive order. It's all really weird. And then you got Alan Dershowitz talking at the thing when Trump is passing these hate speech rules and through executive order. And he's like, this is the most important thing in the fight of anti-Semitism for the last 2,000 years. Why are they always talking about 2,000 years of anti-Semitism? 2,000 years, 2,000 years, 2,000 years. Because in their heads, it goes back to the time of Jesus and Jesus's disciples and trying to tell people to be Christians and believe in our Lord and Savior. So it's like, a lot of people, they don't understand any of this because it goes over all their heads. But, without being too long-winded about it, as soon as I figured out that they were total hypocrites, it bothered me. And that's all I've been talking about for 6 years. Because it's like, yeah, the left sucks, but if the right is fake opposition, then we have no party. There is no free speech movement. There is no small government movement. Like Trump printed more money than Obama during COVID. He sold vaccines like a socialist. He's consolidating corporations into the hands of the government for these computer chips. He's starting wars in Venezuela and convincing you they're about drugs when it has nothing to do with drugs. It has to do with regime change, oil, and Russia and Iran. And people are buying it. So it's a more interesting conversation to me to talk about Republicans because our whole party's fake. So just before I get into the podcast, to me, Nick's story, I don't know him. I don't know everything about his life or anything, but it checks out to me. He was a smart Republican. He started asking questions about Israel. He got blacklisted. Similar thing happened to me in 2019. They tried to say, I'm Fuentes, I'm Groyper. I'm none of those things. I beat to the tune of my own drum. I just came to the conclusion. I heard Ben, I heard Charlie, I heard Prager, I heard Nick. And all I said was like, I don't know. You guys kind of sound like liberals now. It's like you talk about demographics, Republicans cry racism. You talk about Israel, they cry anti-Semitism. I'm like, you guys are the libtards in this situation. Doesn't mean Nick and his audience is right about everything, but if they talk about statistics and demographics and you cry racism, to me, you just sound stupid. If they mention valid speech laws and foreign aid and stuff to Israel and you cry anti-Semitism, it does seem like a little bit of a cover-up. So, it was interesting hearing Nick tell Tucker's his story of like how he went through stuff. And, I think Tucker's a nice guy. And I really think even though maybe he doesn't like Nick or maybe he does, I don't know. I think he kind of had a little bit of thoughtfulness trying to hear his story because, I like Tucker Carlson, but it's like Tucker Carlson, his dad was, I don't want to say it because Tucker gets mad, but his dad seemed to work in the government, and then that's fine. He was wealthy as a kid. That's fine. I don't care how rich or poor you were, but Tucker worked in mainstream media his whole life. He worked in CNN. He worked at Fox, and then he started talking about this stuff like a year ago. So that's always what I said when him, Candace, and Nick were beefing. It's like, listen, I don't know who started it. I'm not trying to like pick sides. It's not high school. I'm not like a mean girl. This isn't a Lindsay Lohan production. So I'm not trying to get into the drama of it. But all I did say months ago was like, listen, to the Tuckers of the world, you've been in the beast. You've been selling wars against American interests your whole life. And I know Tucker has self-awareness of that and he apologizes. And I'm not saying he's a bad person. But it's like, dude, you're in your 60s and you're talking down to like a 20-year-old who figured out what you just figured out last year when he was like 19 years old. Nick did get blacklisted by Zionists from the time he was like 20. And Tucker worked at CNN and Fox and just talked about this a year ago. For me, someone that to be honest, I like Tucker a lot. I would even say I like Tucker more than Nick. But listening to him talk to Nick that way before they got along, it's not that Tucker has to like Nick. It's not that he has to agree with Nick, but it just rubs me and a lot of people the wrong way when, I figured this stuff out 7 years before Tucker Carlson did. I talked about it 7 years before Tucker. Tucker worked for CNN and Fox. So no one's gatekeeping saying you can't talk about it, you can't learn, you can't evolve. But if you're new, like if you just get to a topic and then all of a sudden you're like the gatekeeper of the topic and everybody else is bad, it just comes across as weird. And Tucker does that still. In that interview, he was talking about David Duke. Like he hates David Duke because I think his whole career, he was probably compared to David Duke. And David's brand is really toxic because he was a member of the KKK. So they always use David as like Ilhan Omar agrees with David Duke. Trump agrees with David Duke. Tucker agrees with David Duke. So Tucker really hates David for that reason and was calling him a Fed in this interview. I don't think I have no idea who's really a Fed. I know David Duke served in government. I know Tucker Carlson worked at CNN and Fox and his dad worked in government. I don't know who's who. But it's like David talked about what Tucker's talking about now 30, 40 years ago. I'm not saying he's a good person. Like you can make your decision of what you want about everybody, but it's like Tucker has this weird thing where he lashes out constantly at people who were talking about what he just started talking about a few years ago, like 30 years ago. And I understand where Tucker's coming from because, Tucker has always had a pretty safe brand, even though he's edgy and pretty crazy. Like he worked at Fox, he worked at CNN, he got to go overseas. Like he's very well connected. So a Nick or a David Duke, like attached to your brand is not good for Tucker. It's, you know what I'm saying? And so Tucker's trying to like cast them away as far as possible. Like I'm not them, get them away from me, which I understand. In some ways I try to do similar things just to let people know I'm not that person. I'm responsible for what I do, not for what someone else says. I hate that. But with that being said, I think you should also be mindful while you say, hey, I'm not that person. I think you should be mindful to know that you eventually will be that person. Like, even though Tucker's played it really safe, he's still not safe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I played it safe. I'm not Nick. I'm not this. We know, but you're still in the same position as Nick. That's why you're talking to him. Nick's really popular. You realize he's not going away, and it's only going to hurt your career and brand if you just talk bad about Nick all the time. So now you're talking to him. It's like, no, and this is a lesson I've learned as well, where I see it from both sides, because I do agree with Tucker in the sense of I would never let somebody else change who I am. I would never let them make me hateful. Like, I'm not trying to play the Joker just because somebody pissed me off. But at the same time, I do think you have to understand, no matter how much you do, some people, they're not looking for the good in you, and they don't care that you're playing it safe. They're going to hate you just as much as they hate Nick. Like, that's the reality of the situation. So later in the podcast, they were talking about, I guess Tucker had asked him about like Jewish stuff, because Tucker's like, listen, I know there's good and bad in every group or whatever. And then Nick was kind of like talking about certain organizations, like international organizations that are not working in the interest of nations. And I forget at what point, but I know Tucker said something along the lines of like, I'm more comfortable thinking about it this way, or I'm more comfortable talking about it this way, or I'm like, whatever he said, I'm more comfortable doing it this way, which I totally understand. It's like, I'm more comfortable doing things my way, and he's more, but regardless of how comfortable you are, and I'm not trying to critique Tucker, this is just my analysis thinking out loud. No matter how comfortable you are with saying something a certain way, it doesn't mean it's not true. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have to figure it out eventually. Like, for example, on ethnicity, let's just say you don't see race and you don't believe race matters and you don't care what race somebody is. It's a very noble thought. Like, I'm a Christian. Who cares about it? Because I don't think about it in my personal daily life, right? Understandable, respectable, cool. But just because you think that way doesn't mean other people think that way. So if other people hate you racially, if other people spiritually hate you, religiously hate you, vote a different way, act a different way, and then when the demographics flip, you're never going to be in power again, and they're going to hate you and beat down on you, then it doesn't matter that you're more comfortable not thinking about it, because it's going to happen anyway. I'm not saying you have to act like Nick or talk like Nick. You could be yourself. You don't have to let the coldness of the world break your spirit and break who you really are. I don't let it break who I am, but I am aware of it. So I guess that, like, that, I see the differences. I'm myself, but it's like I see that Nick and Tucker are different people that I agree with and disagree with on certain things, but that's kind of like Nick is so comfortable just saying what he actually means that he makes people that you think are edgy look uncomfortable. Like, he makes Alex Jones look like Alex Jones isn't that ballsy. He makes Tucker look like Tucker's not that ballsy. Like, Tucker's really ballsy, but next to Nick, he doesn't seem that ballsy because he's kind of on the back heel, trying to figure out what he's talking about. Where I get what both of them are saying. I understand it. I see it from both sides, but I tend to think that there's a lot of people that they don't want to think about certain things because it's just a hard road to walk up. And this is, I've said this for a while and I don't know the truth, because someone could look at me and say, how did Anomaly go from 2016 to 2019 without figuring this stuff out? It just wasn't on my radar. I never really thought about it. I was more like left versus right, Trump versus the bad guys. And, it took seeing that Trump and DeSantis were passing speech laws for me to think about this stuff. That's really the first thing that crossed my radar that made me think differently. And, some people earlier and later. And that's the thing about others where, like with Tucker, like, did Tucker really never notice this stuff? Like, Pat Buchanan used to talk about it and Tucker hated Pat Buchanan. Maybe he really was ignorant, right? Maybe like you play this team game. Like, for example, maybe if Daily Wire or I don't know, Turning Point would have swooped me up in like 2017, maybe I would have thought differently because I would have had like the team bias of being on Team Prager or whatever. I don't know. I don't think I'm that type of person, and I think I would have saw through it. But that really does beg the question of like, I don't know. I'm trying to say, I wonder if people purposely ignore certain things because they know thinking about it is going to be a hard road to walk up. I mean, I know even for myself, I'm not afraid to speak the truth, but there are just certain topics where it's like it is almost like a dead end, because in this society, like, people are just very brainwashed, very comfortable with the mainstream narrative. So, if you're early on any topic, you're going to seem crazy. And then 10 years later, everybody's going to agree with you. So everybody, especially newscasters who speak publicly every day, everybody's dealing with the thought process of like, is it smart to say this? Do I make sure I believe what I'm saying? And to be honest, some people don't believe what they say. There's just a lot of shills and idiots out there that they just get paid and they go on Fox or they go on CNN, and all they're doing is just like dancing like circus creatures. You know what I'm saying? And they're not saying or doing, like, some people are just sellouts. Some people are idiots. Some people are liars. But other people are like constantly trying to wonder, what do I say? Or, do I think about this stuff? Because if I think about it deeply, I might come to a conclusion that's so unpopular that it might get me fired, that it might get me banned, that it might get me blacklisted. And I guess for some of us, and some more than others, I think Nick and other people have been like way more censored than I've ever been. But, we all kind of have like a decision to make where, for me, I never meant to get blacklisted or anything. But when the fork in the road came, like, do you want to sell out? Do you want to take a trip to a foreign country and get propagandized? Do you want to work for one of these shitty organizations? Do you want to shut up about the speech laws? Do you want to just suck the dirt off Trump's shoes? Do you want to just lie about COVID? Do you want to pretend like printing money is good now? Do you want to pretend like communism Trump checks is cool? I was like, no, I don't, dude, I don't care. I'm not, I'm not interested in worldly things. You can't like put money in front of my face or opportunities. Like, I'm just not that guy. And I think once they realize you're not that guy, they're not interested in you. So for Tucker, I don't know. I think I love Tucker, but I think Tucker and Nick talking was so interesting because the one point that they really kind of were like, well, they talked about women and disagreed on that, which was funny, but it was like Nick trying to explain what he meant when he talked about Jewish stuff and Tucker trying to be like, I don't really think about it that way. I get it, but I also get what Nick's saying. Like, I always try to be careful when I describe this sort of stuff, but it's like, I'm not saying it's just exclusive to one group or one religion, but say like the Anti-Defamation League. When Republicans bring up the Anti-Defamation League, they always say it's a left-wing organization. It's a left-wing organization. And then the same people saying it's a left-wing organization will then quote the ADL 2 years later to promote the ADL. And most people don't even pay attention to this, but like, why are they doing that? Why would someone say it's a left-wing organization and then kind of like tell students to report to them? That's what Libs of TikTok did, who is a Jewish female influencer. God bless her, but it's like she's complaining about the ADL. Oh my gosh, the ADL is so bad. They're coming after me. They're putting me on an extremist list. And then a couple months later, she posted a link and told students in California to go report to the ADL. If the ADL is this bad left-wing organization harassing you, why would you be pointing students to go report to them? That's a little weird. If they're a left-wing organization, why is Elise Stefanik speaking at the Anti-Defamation League conference with Jonathan Greenblatt? Because it's an international Jewish organization. That's what the ADL is. So, I don't know. Yeah, they have a left-wing skew on a lot of topics, but they also have, in some cases, a right-wing Zionist skew when it comes to Israel. So they're an international Jewish organization. It's not smart to say that, even though it's literally true to some, because it's like, I don't see that. So I don't know what else to say. Like, yeah, that doesn't mean it's not everybody's fault, but like, do we have to pretend like Black Lives Matter's name is White Lives Matter? Like, are we not allowed to use labels and things to explain stuff? And that's where you start to, like, you could say you don't realize anything. Like, I don't, Tucker doesn't do that with race. Like, Tucker doesn't say, I don't realize ethnicity. He does. And he's disappointed that Europe is becoming like shifting demographics away from its host nations. Like, England isn't England anymore. I'm trying to think of Ireland isn't Ireland anymore. And it deeply bothers Tucker. So my question to Tucker, God bless him, I'm just speaking out loud. Why does that bother you? Does it make you a bad person? Of course not. It's because if you look around the world, is India becoming more white and Chinese? Is it going to be a majority Black nation in 10 years? No, because there's 1 billion Indian people there and they're not shifting demographics. Neither is Japan. Neither are a lot of countries, but Europe, for some reason, just got tricked into like, hey, let's just completely flip our demographics. And then you're a bad person if you say it's not a good trend. So Tucker knows right away, that's not a good trend. I don't like it. I don't care if they call me racist. I don't think it's a good idea. That's the same thing with other topics. It's like, you could not think about it or not talk about it or not notice certain patterns and trends, but it's the same exact pattern and trend. Like, why would Tucker want to live in certain neighborhoods and not other neighborhoods? And why does he notice crime rates and demographics? Does it make him? No, it's just statistically what he notices. And then he makes a decision based on, so statistically, I don't know, who's running most media organizations? Are you allowed to say it? Who owns Prager? Is an Israeli intelligence lady who used to work for Israeli intelligence? Does she use her power to, push that agenda? What is Daily Wire? Are you allowed to do what Candace did and still stay there? Fox, like Tucker said, is owned by Rupert Murdoch, but he is a Zionist and he does have that same foreign policy. So I guess for me, at least, obviously some people are annoying and over the top, but it's more just a conversation where it's like, if you're called racist and anti-Semitic and sexist all the time, it doesn't mean anything. It just means I don't want to talk about that. I'm trying to play it safe. You're a bad person, but I don't really have to explain how. And like Tucker would be lying to himself if he hasn't noticed who owns most media organization or who are the biggest donors or who's funding the election against Thomas Massie and why, and who gave Trump hundreds of millions of dollars and what Trump had to do for that. Like, how could you not notice at this point? So I get that Tucker doesn't want to associate himself with Nick because it's bad for his brand in the sense of like, yeah, I'll talk to you, but I don't fully agree with you, which is totally fine. Neither do I. But like, I guess the points Tucker were making wasn't really, it was just like, has he really never thought of that? Or does he just not want to say it because then it becomes like uncomfortable? It's like uncomfortable to like look at things that way. But, I don't know. For me, it's just one of those things. I've always just listened to everybody, right? I've listened to Charlie, I've listened to Ben, I've listened to Tucker, I've listened to Trump, I've heard what Nick had to say. Like, I kind of just like to listen to everybody and then make my own opinion out of it. But I always noticed that about Nick is like the people who hated him just never seemed to really have anything for him. And then a lot of the people, even Charlie, rest in peace, a lot of the ideas that Charlie was trying to reject in 2019 from Nick ended up being Charlie Kirk talking points in 2024 or 2025 because in 2019, it was crazy to think about racial demographics. And then you have Biden opening the border for 4 years and bringing in tens of millions of people. And now that reality of demographic shift is closer and closer. And then you just start to realize, well, it's happening whether I talk about it or not. So either you just play dumb or you have an opinion. You could defend it, you could not like it. But, I think a lot of the people who hated Nick over the last couple of years, they end up basically sounding like him. And Tucker really not being an exception. I'm not saying he's exactly the same. I know they're different people. They have different ideas on stuff. But at the end of the day, regardless of what Trump says or what Nick says or what Tucker says or what Candace says or what Prager says or what Ben says, like either something's true or it's not. And I think the interesting part about that conversation as well, and something that I think was a moment that's kind of sticking to me now, is Tucker said he doesn't like identity politics, and Nick said he does like identity politics, and they're happening whether Tucker realizes it or not. And it was just an interesting moment because a lot of mainstream Republicanism, for me, it was like, we don't believe in identity politics. We don't believe in race. We don't believe in groupthink. But at the same time, we're going to pass speech laws for Israel. And at the same time, we have these rules for them. And you're like, so they have identity politics and their identity supersedes our identity as American citizens. But I'm not allowed to point out that they have an identity, which I'm not even mad at. But it's like their identity literally supersedes our Constitution. How are you not supposed to notice that, or at least like make a comment about it? So I feel like Tucker, he's made a lot of progress, and he's definitely become way more outspoken on these topics. But, I think they're just uncomfortable to think about and talk about. And my best thought of why the youth is more interested in talking about it than the elderly, not that he's that old or anything. I don't mean to call Tucker elderly, but, I think Tucker's generation, like they're not going to be around in 40, 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, hopefully Tucker is, but let's just say 70 years. So like the end stage of all the stuff they're complaining about, they're not really going to be here. And, I think a lot of the 20-year-olds, like the right-wing 20-year-olds, are way crazier and I would say more edgy than like 40-year-old Republicans. And a lot of sorry, I don't know why this is freezing, but a lot of the 40-year-old Republicans, like they don't understand the youth. They're like, why do they act that way? Why do they talk about this stuff? But it's like, they're going to have to live in the results of that, And I think Tucker will just more and more figure this stuff out. And I'm not even saying he has to agree, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad they had this conversation because I don't think they disagree in as much as Tucker thinks they do. And I just think certain people don't want to talk about certain things. Like when I talk about Zionism to my friends who are like super Christian Zionists, I'm not trying to convince them or whatever. I just want to have a real conversation where like biblically, First Amendment wise, like I'll talk to my friends who are Christian Zionists. I'll say, listen, I'm not trying to stop your faith in a foreign nation or a group of people or anything, right? But have you read the anti-Semitism speech laws? Like, have you read them? Because they're being passed into law. They're being passed through executive order. They're being passed into Florida. They're being passed into Arkansas. They've been passed into like 1,000 different places in America when it comes to governments, NGOs. It's like sweeping the country. And it's brand new in the sense of it didn't even exist like 20 years ago. There was no International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism until the 2010s. So I'll ask my Christian Zionist friends, I'll be like, listen, outside of anything you believe, do you notice that they're passing these speech laws? And do you have anything to say about it? Is there any opposition to it or anything? Like, why do you never talk about this? And it's like they want to jump off the topic. Because I'm right. I'm not trying to stop your faith in Israel. I'm not trying to stop you from worshiping Jews. If that's what your parents and your pastor told you to do, that's on you, buddy. I'm not going to, I'm not God, but I don't know that that's exactly what the Bible says. But if you want to believe that, I'm not even trying to have that conversation. Let's just go to conservative American politics. Why are you ignoring these hate speech laws that any other group you'd be freaking out about? It's like, it's just like, it's a paradigm shattering thought, because once you realize that, you realize the Dinesh D'Souza's, the Ted Cruz's, the Mike Huckabees, they're not that honest, like these are the Brandon Tatums. It's like the game that they're playing. It's a different game. I don't, that's on them. If they're inspired to act that way and talk that way. Okay, but I've been wondering this stuff for 7 years now. I figured this out in 2019. And to see Tucker talking to Fuentes, it's paradigm shifting. It's definitely Overton window shifting. And I think at the end of the day, you're starting to see Marjorie Taylor Greene speak about this stuff. You're starting to see Matt Gaetz speak about this stuff. Even Anna Paulina Luna is providing minor pushback to Netanyahu. And this was like unthinkable 5 years ago. This was like banned, blacklisted, and banned and blacklisted in a way where nobody knew about it. Like for Nick, most people didn't even know who he was. And the reason they didn't know who he was is because a lot of people in the Republican movement, they made it almost their entire job to make sure you never saw him. Because it's the same with like Tucker Carlson and Mark Levin. If you put Tucker Carlson and Mark Levin on television, who's going to have the number one show? It's going to be Tucker Carlson. So certain people, they're threatened by Nick because they can't compete with him. If you can compete with Nick and beat him and make him look stupid, what makes him so much more dangerous than Karine Jean-Pierre or Rachel Maddow or, Jesse Waters? It's like, I understand he's a lot more opinionated than Jesse Waters, but why is a kid with a podcast who's kind of a dick sometimes, like, that's worse than someone putting on a suit and selling a war against our interests that costs $10 trillion and kills hundreds of thousands of people? Like, the mainstream media has provoked wars that have killed millions and costed trillions. Yet somehow that's the safe. This is why the youth is not thinking that way. Safe to the boomers and whatever's below the boomers and millennials and like those safe to that is like a bunch of debt, demographic shift, the complete collapse of both parties. Now the left is so crazy. All you have to do for the older generation is be like, vote for Jack Chitterelli or vote for this person. They're not going to transgender the kids and they're going to cut taxes. And that's, and it makes sense. It's like, dang, the left wingers are so crazy. Let's vote for the right wingers. But back in the day, everybody believed in that stuff. And there was actual discussion about what they were going to do. Like Bill Clinton was probably more right wing than most right wingers nowadays. But that was just normal. There was no left and right because it was like normal. Let's have actual adult discussions about what we're going to do. Nowadays, like, the Republican Party is completely broken. The country is completely broken. And I think the younger generation is just like, listen, that's not going to really cut it. So for me, I've said this for 6 years now. You put Nick on a debate stage with a lot of these mainstream Republicans, he's going to wipe the floor with them. Even Tucker. I'm not going to say he wiped the floor because Tucker gave him an interview, let him talk. Tucker did a great job. But like, who's going to beat Nick in a debate? Ben? He's not going to. Like, these people really can't hang with him on certain topics. I listened to Dinesh and Nick, and I found it very boring because they just talked about Iran forever, and it's like, who cares? But it's like they're so afraid to let people see this kid because he's clearly better than other people that they're offering. The entire Republican media atmosphere is basically like an illusion of like, will you toe the line? I would say the most interesting, and it's funny because he's also very dry and not that interesting, but the most actual, like, interesting person in mainstream Republican politics right now that hasn't been blacklisted is like Matt Walsh. And it's like I said, it's funny because he's really not that interesting. He's a very like simple, dry guy, but he toes the line on the Israel topic. Like, he doesn't agree with Ben, but he doesn't go as far as Tucker or Nick or Candace. But in his head, I'm sure he agrees with a lot of what they're saying because it's like, he's America first. Matt Walsh likes America. Matt Walsh doesn't pledge allegiance to a foreign nation. So it's like, that's like, you can be Matt Walsh. If you want to be in mainstream media, you could be Matt Walsh. You could, I'm an isolationist or America first, but like, don't do too much about it. Just talk about it a little bit. Besides that, like, you have to be like a Jesse Waters or, you know what I'm saying? Like, today the news is, they don't allow real free thinkers to be able to speak about this stuff. And like I've said for a while, I'm sure a lot of these people, they have a few drinks, they're off camera. You don't think they notice who's funding politics? You don't think they notice the speech laws? Of course they do. But the trade-off for them to be able to stay at their networks and not have their life ruined by the media is to play within the matrix. You could talk about trannies, you could talk about libtards, you could talk about Antifa, but you can't talk about Trump's donors. You can't talk about who runs our network. You can't talk about the hidden hand that's really making sure Republicans don't actually do anything. People like Mike Johnson, bare minimum nothingness while they send our money to Ukraine and Israel. It's like the hidden agreement that everyone's going with. So this was a historic interview, whether people like or trust Tucker and Nick or not, because it's like these ideas they've tried to suppress forever. They've just gotten to the point where, for whatever reason, and I don't know why they're letting them back on YouTube, et cetera, but they're letting these views go mainstream. And I think the more people hear him, not that everything Nick says is going to be mainstream, but there's a reason they don't show him versus other people, because if you listen to him and other people, the same as Trump versus Ted Cruz, you like Trump better because Trump's more honest. That's like Nick. He's more honest than Ben. He's definitely, there's definitely a lot of times I disagree with him. Like, I don't think he understands health or pharmaceuticals and, other, like, even on topics like how he chooses to act and talk. And it's like, I'm not him. We're not the same person spiritually, emotionally, mentally. We don't have the same hobbies. I like sports. He hates sports. I like working out. He doesn't. It is what it is. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like they never wanted people to see this guy because, putting him on a television next to Mark Levin, most Americans are going to like Nick more than Mark Levin, probably. It's just he's going to talk to them more. He's going to be more unfiltered. He doesn't seem to have, a foreign agenda, let's say. So I found the conversation interesting. I thought Tucker did a great job of interviewing. I thought Nick, gave an interesting part of telling his story. And I'm going to read some comments, but like I said, I can't speak for everything Nick's ever done, and I don't know his entire story, but the same way he got blacklisted in 2016, and they basically said, if you're going to question this topic, then you're not going to be able to really be here, in different words. I'm not thinking that's what they do. I know that's what they do. They did the same thing to me. I'm not Nick. I don't act like him. I'm not as edgy. I was nice. I was respectful. It's not about being nice. It's not about being respectful. It's not about being America first. It's about, are you a useful idiot? Are you a tool? Are you so vain or so egotistical that you're willing to sacrifice your own country for fame and Mar-a-Lago parties and meetings? And if you're able to pass that test, then you get opportunities. Then you get to be in the club. And if you say no, and you say, no, I actually think the First Amendment means what it says. I don't think the First Amendment means we need special rules for one race, one religion, and one foreign country. Then it's like, oh, that's too bad. Then I guess, you're an anti-Semite. I guess we're going to have to smear you. I guess we're going to have to call you racist. I guess we're going to have to use our media powers against you. I guess we're going to do it behind the scenes so nobody knows. That sucks. It sucks that you're never, So like I said, there's good and bad people in all groups and mainstream media and right wing and whatever. I'm overall happy to see Tucker talk to Nick, because to me, I like it. It's another one of those things too, where if someone is basically trying to gatekeep you and prevent you from reaching Republicans, to me, it's almost worse than a liberal, because it's like, we all know liberals suck. We all don't agree with what they're doing. But what if there was a group and an organized, basically cabal of sorts of, all different groups of people, but really with a similar agenda, to prevent someone even more honest than Donald Trump or like, even more America first to get through the cracks? That's what they're doing on every front. Thomas Massey's not perfect. A lot of people don't like him for valid reasons, but Thomas Massey is America first. He does make sense. Even when I disagree with him, it checks out. And look who's funding the opposition to Thomas Massey. It's the same story on every front of politics. And while I don't fully agree with anybody, or else I would just be them, it's long overdue for like the Ted Cruzes, for the Mike Johnsons, for the Lindsey Grahams, the Trumps, even the Mark Levins, his donors, and the Ben Shapiro types. It's more than like, they need to have a conversation with everyone else. And when they do, when the gatekeeping stops, they're losing the discussion. I went on Dinesh D'Souza's Facebook the other day, and he's getting ratioed by all his supporters. Like, even his own supporters don't even believe him anymore. And they're going to be like, oh, it's just bots. It's not bots. It's just everyone's waking up. And, even Tucker doesn't want to, put a fence up anymore. He realizes like those days are over. So I think he's taking his gate down and letting Nick say his piece. Someone said, would I consider talking to Larry Sharpe? He's running for governor with the Libertarian Party. I mean, he's not going to win governor of New York. So no offense, but God bless the guy. But it's like, I'm done doing interviews with people polling at like 1%. necessarily even have any mainstream politicians on anymore. But if I saw the guy and really liked what he was talking about and really found him to be an interesting guest, then I would have him on. But if it's like, hey, I'm polling at 0.005% in a governor election, don't you want me on your show? Not really. No offense to the guy, but it would have to be deeper than just me thinking it's cool that he's running for office to have him on. Someone said Adelson has her PAC money going against Massey too. Adelson, Singer, and one other billionaire. They absolutely do. And, people are like, oh, why does Anomaly promote Thomas Massey so much? Oh, dude, you like Thomas Massey so much. Dude, if they're going to spend if billionaires are going to spend millions of dollars against Thomas Massey to try to kick him out of Kentucky because he likes America more than Israel, I'm not spending any money. I'm for free countering propaganda. And it's more effective than their money because money's not buying people's support. Because once you figure this stuff out, it doesn't matter how many ads you get for Israel or how many ads you get for some plant that Adelson and Trump are trying to put in. You know what I'm saying? No one cares. So that's why I like to post Massey more. It's like the same way when the left lies about Trump, I just post Trump all the time. When Trump lies about Massey, I post Massey all the time. I'm here to be a good influence and just counter the propaganda. Someone said, y'all have so much to say about Nick, but you probably never even watched his show once. I don't know who you're talking about in the comments or if you're talking about me, but I've watched this show. I guess everybody likes to love and hate people a lot. Or to me, I'm just analyzing where it's like I've heard Nick for 6 years and people are like, he's this, he's that. I'm listening to it. I can decide for myself and then I could come to my independent opinion. For me, it's not about what he's saying or what Tucker's saying or what Dinesh is saying. What's the truth? And if the truth leads me in a direction that makes you think that I'm someone else, well, that's on you. You're a Trump guy if you do that, or you're this, or you're an anti-vaxxer, or you're an anti-Semite. You can make up all these fake words that you want to try to make me look bad. But it's like, if I'm right about Pfizer, I'm right about pharmaceuticals, and all you have is a word on your side and propaganda, then so be it. That's just the way it is. Someone said Nick sold out, limited hangout. Some people are saying everything's what you make of it. So it's like, I think the reason that they do a lot of stuff, and I'm not even saying necessarily this podcast, but in general, the reason that they do certain psychological operations is because they work so well, where it's like a hangout is what you make of it if you think it's that. For me, I don't care what Tucker and Nick is because it's not going to change my life or anything. It's just let's just say they're trying to figure out how to do this or do that. It stops when enough people stop falling for it. Lockdowns work when people follow it. Mass mandates work when enough people listen. Trump is a hero if enough people actually buy the script. I'm done getting emotional about who other people are or what people think of them because it all changes when enough people wake up. I think Trump is better than Biden, but at the same time, I haven't trusted Trump since 2019, 2020. Some people don't understand that. They don't get it. Why would you vote? Why would you do this? It is what it is. Whether I vote or not, it's not like I'm pledging allegiance to loyalty to somebody. If I chose to not vote or I chose to vote, my vote doesn't even matter anyway. It's what matters is how many people will wake up to this fact and piece the story together. See through limited hangouts, see through controlled opposition, Trump only works if his base worships him to a crazy extent. But if you look at what he's doing and provide accurate pushback to it, then he's forced to maneuver. It's a game of tug and pull between the people and the politicians and the donors. So to me, that aspect of it is more interesting than the characters. And with that being said, I think the perfect example of how fooled by Trump people still are. I didn't realize how fooled they were, but the Venezuela thing made me realize it. So many people just believe what Trump is saying about Venezuelan drug boats just because he's saying it. It's like if Bush or Obama or Biden or Kamala were just bombing boats, would you believe the government and say, oh, they're doing it for the exact reasons that they're saying? Probably not, especially at this point. I think people used to believe Bush, But then they're like, wait, no, now I don't believe Bush after believing him for 8 years. With Donald Trump, his administration has provided no evidence besides these little video game style, like blow up these little tiny boats that don't even have enough gas to get there. And then people are like, oh, yeah, he's just blowing up drug boats. I told people this 6 months ago. They're trying to regime change Venezuela. They have a little plant lady down there who's talking about American Israel, who's getting little plant Nobel Peace Prizes for doing nothing. They want to overthrow Maduro. Maduro's not controllable. He works with Iran. He works with China. He works with Russia. They want to overthrow Maduro. I'm not a regime change expert, but if you want to overthrow Maduro, knock yourself out. Not that you can, but you get what I'm saying. If you want to root for a regime change, that's on you. It hasn't historically worked well, but if you think we're 0 for 20 and this is going to be the time it works, God bless you. It might create a bigger regime change. Refugee crisis. But, then you'll just blame the left. It's like they'll create a refugee crisis. Then a liberal will get in. They'll blame the left. It's like a system. It's like an international system of like puppets. It's like Trump gets in. He does 15 days to slow the spread. They replace him with Biden. Biden does the mandate. Biden starts the wars. Trump pretends to stop them, but Trump starts a new war with Venezuela. Then it's going to cause a mass refugee crisis if they overthrow Maduro. Then a Democrat will get in. Then the refugees will flood America and Europe. And then the right will say, hey, stop doing that. And then a right winger will win. Like, it's more of a theater, in my opinion, than it is even like an actual thing. But the point that I'm getting to is I can't believe that so many Republicans actually think that Trump is just bombing drug boats because he wants to stop drugs to America. Their only proof is I like Trump. I trust these fake opposition Republican influencers, and it seems really cool that he's blowing up these boats. They have no evidence, no logic, no reality. If you look at all the evidence, it's like most drugs are not coming from Venezuela. Virtually none of the fentanyl is coming from Venezuela. Every excuse they've made is completely just fabricated in order to regime change Venezuela. It's the same as saying Assad's a butcher, this guy's that. Whoever doesn't want to work with the bankers and work with the international community, they just make up some sort of thing. There's worse crimes that have happened from American presidents, politicians, but then they just blame it on Gaddafi or Assad. Oh, he's butcher. He's doing this. He's doing that. Whatever they have to do to plant their little Al-Qaeda guy that is leading there now, it's like it's all just a show. But I had no idea so many people on the right were still this brainwashed. They're like, you don't get it, Anobly. Trump's fighting the drug boats. What news are you? What are you watching? Fox News, Newsmax, David Harris? Like, who's telling you this? And why do you believe it? You believe it because people like Trump. People who like Trump believe what Trump says. They don't need evidence. It's like, Trump is my evidence. Trump is the truth. I trust Trump. If you trust Trump that much, why wouldn't they keep giving you him? It's like, so thank you, Celeste. I appreciate you. It's one of those things where it's like people need to just regardless of Tucker or Nick Fuentes or who they are, or what Candace says, or what this person says, or what Trump says, the whole equation comes down to like, are people willing to be honest with themselves and see through bullshit if anybody does it, right? And if they can't, then it doesn't matter who's who. It doesn't matter who Tucker is. It doesn't matter who Nick is, and it doesn't matter who Trump is. That's my opinion, because I don't put that much stake. I like Tucker. I think he's funny. I find him very charming and interesting. Nick is a fascinating character who's like, they tried to crush and he's getting bigger than ever. I don't put that much stake into who they are, because to me, it's almost like, what does it matter unless they run for office and then take control of the White House or something? I don't know. They're just talking about stuff, and it's up to the citizen to like fully go all in on it or listen to it and consider it and make their own opinions. Yeah. But I thought of something the other day with like Candace Owens versus like the Zionists and stuff over the Charlie Kirk stuff. Candace reminds me of Trump in the sense of like Trump versus the left, right? It doesn't matter how much Trump is wrong. It doesn't matter how crazy Trump acts. Trump can even just make stuff up. Like, he's trying to act like Reagan loved tariffs. Reagan didn't love tariffs. He'd used tariffs a little bit, but like that clip wasn't even fully taken out of context. It's just a shorter version of a long speech. Reagan was in some ways pretending to be libertarian and stuff. So Reagan's take on tariffs were nuanced, but he did say a lot of things saying tariffs were basically a tax and a scam. So it's like Trump doesn't even need to tell the truth, which is not good, but it's like he'll still beat the left. And the reason Trump will beat the left is because if you take the entire entity of Trump and if you take the entire entity of the left, Trump is more honest than the left. The problem is because the left is so dishonest and crazy, Trump doesn't feel the need to be honest anymore because it's like LeBron James playing a baby on a Fisher Price basket. LeBron James can win no matter how bad he plays. Trump can win no matter how bad he plays. It's like Candace with the Zionists, and I'm not saying Candace is as bad as Trump because she's not. But Candace, like, I have seen her make some little mistakes. I have seen her kind of like, she's kind of like, trying to solve the whole mystery by herself. So she's just kind of swinging and going for everything. But the thing is, no matter how many mistakes Candace makes, or no matter how much she oversteps or does something that people don't like, she's still more honest than all of her opponents and the Zionists. So, it's like Candace is going to just keep winning, in my opinion, just like Trump's going to keep winning. It's like, what's the game? Trump versus the left. Trump's going to win every time. Candace versus the Zionists. Candace is more likable, more believable. And even if her accuracy rating isn't 100%, it's closer to the top than like the people like who's like mad at her all the time. Dave Rubin or something, like Seth Dillon, Dinesh D'Souza, Brandon Tatum. I don't know. You put Brandon Tatum, Dinesh D'Souza, Seth Dillon versus like Tucker Carlson and Candace. Like Tucker and Candace are just more honest, more likable, more believable. So that's why I kind of stay away, just because, like, I don't know. I'm not a perfect person, but I do take my job seriously. Like, it's heavy stuff. I want to be as accurate and responsible as I can. And we're in a world where not everybody thinks that way. And you really can't think that way to get to the top of this world. You almost have to be crazy. One thing I'll say about the whole Charlie situation, like everybody's starting to notice that a lot of people around Charlie are acting really weird, and people are like, wow, they're acting really suspicious. They're acting really weird. Here's what I will say. And this is I don't know if it's the nicest thing I could say, but it's the nicest explanation that I could think of for how weird everybody's acting like around Charlie. This industry is filled with narcissists and sociopaths. Most people in politics, especially at the high levels, I'm not saying everybody, but it attracts total vain, empty Hollywood types that just love themselves and want attention and want fame and want to be that guy on Fox News. So, like, let's just say, I'm just saying in the weird way, maybe they're all just sociopaths and narcissists. Like, other people are like way more suspicious of them. And I'm not saying you can't be. It's you get to determine how you think about people. But I always tell people that, where it's like, they're doing this, they're on the show, they're smiling, they're doing the podcast. It's because they're all just total sociopaths. Like, it's like, yeah, I'm sure they're mourning Charlie, and yeah, I'm sure they're upset he died. But at the same time, it's like their career is launching now, and they've always wanted a career, so they just like, look at me, I'm here, I'm smiling, I'm taking selfies. Politics is a really weird industry, and it doesn't attract the best people or the most humble people. You almost have to be a psychopath. You almost have to be like, I'm going to run for office, I'm going to take donor money. They're going to try to find the craziest dirt on me as possible. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to talk trash. I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to lie. I'm going to say I didn't lie, but they lie more. So it's okay when that's what this industry seems like to me. It's like, well, they lied 7 times and I lied 5 times. Why not lie? Like, I don't know, if you're doing news or something, why? It's like Trump lies all the time, but he lies less than the left does. Like his persona is just more consistent, even though he's wrong often. Gavin Newsom is a complete joker. So it's like Trump versus Newsom. Trump tends to seem more honest than him, but it doesn't mean Trump is trustworthy. Dude, Trump lies so much this term, it annoys the crap out of me, because then you get a situation where it's like, oh, are you a liberal? No, I like, Reagan was not a huge fan of tariffs. Trump is not right about what he's saying about that. Trump is not, like, he just said that him and Toyota did a $10 billion deal, and Toyota came out and was like, we never agreed to that. It's like, he's hilarious. Trump is funny, but it's like, I find it wild that people trust him so much. Hold on, I'm gonna play this clip again, and then I'm gonna answer a few questions, and then I'm probably gonna try to keep this under an hour and a half. But the sun's just too bright right now. Hold on one second.
A contentious dialogue.
Well, I
for a
thought you
long
were
time.
a Fed. I was
I thought you were a Fed.
I was a Fed.
Yeah.
I'm not a Fed. But whatever. I don't care.
That was a funny clip. But anyway, all right. Let's go through 2 more comments, and then I'm gonna wrap this one up. Let's see. Why am I ignoring Fuentes' insane attacks on Candace? I wouldn't say I'm ignoring it, but I guess what I would say is like similar to what I was saying earlier. In politics, everybody, like even Fuentes and these people, like, I don't know. It's like that. It's like personal drama. I don't know who started it. I don't know if Candace said something first, if Nick said something first. They could figure it out. I'm not in high school. These are adults at this point. So I don't know. I feel like eventually they'll probably get it together and be on the same page somewhat like Tucker and Candace, and maybe they won't. I don't know. That's on them, but I don't. What am I supposed to watch all of Nick's videos and know every single thing he says about Candace or something? And then even if I do, I don't get it. Like what I'm supposed to say something about it? And then if Candace says something to Nick, I'm supposed to, like, what am I, like a high school like therapist or something for these people? I'm not really. What attacks has he done to her or something? I'm not even like aware of it, to be honest. Someone said Nick has just. Oh, are you talking about the Charlie stuff? Well, here's the thing. Not to be a hipster about it, but I don't fully agree with either of them. Where I feel like Nick was like shutting it down really early, and I thought that was kind of strange, to be honest. He was like, "Oh, don't say this, don't say that. It's definitely a leftist." That was a little weird to me, like the way Nick was acting. And then Candace came out with the text messages, and I was like, "Dang, that's pretty crazy. Like, I didn't expect that." And then Nick kind of gave her credit, and then Candace starts talking about like an Egyptian plane, and she kind of gets the time wrong. Where I'm like, I don't know, maybe the Egyptian plane has nothing to do with it, but Candace seems to think it does. I don't know. I don't fully agree with either of them, but I think that Candace is like taking it upon herself to basically be like the head investigator of this thing. And Nick doesn't seem interested in it at all. So not to be a hipster about it, but I don't agree with what Nick's saying, and I don't know why he's saying it, and I don't know what his angle is. But for the first couple weeks after Charlie passed, I thought it was weird. And then with Candace, it's like like I said, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but as a consumer of media, sometimes I'll watch it and be like, wow, that's really interesting. Candace is doing a good job. Other times I'll feel like I don't know, like she's reaching a little bit, and I don't fully agree. But that's on her. Like, she wants to do that. She wants to go after it. He wants to think this. She wants, it's whatever. But me personally, like some things Candace does, I think have been like game changing, and no one else has done more than her to like at least give us a fuller story of it. But on that same note, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the plane thing I thought seemed like a little bit of a reach, and not the fact that she's talking about it, but maybe more the fact that she's like, I guess they like to talk the way they talk. I talk the way I talk. I'm not trying to be hypercritical of it, because I'm sure she watches some things I say and says, I don't like how he said that too. But that's just how I look at Candace and Nick. It's like, I'll talk about it when it is relevant to me or interesting, but it's like my full job is not like a nanny for the two of them if they're saying mean stuff to each other. I don't agree with how Nick was criticizing her early on, but then also I feel like they both made good points. They both made some good points, and they both made, in my opinion, some not good points. That's on them. Candace is moving very quickly. She's doing a lot. Nick, he's also moving quickly and doing a lot. So I don't know. Do you want me to, did I say enough? Like, am I allowed to like some things that some of them do and disagree with some things that they do? He started it. I mean, I don't like, if he started it, then he can end it. I don't know. He can apologize, or she can apologize. Like, this is not a therapy session for like middle schoolers. I don't care. Like, somehow I'm in the same space, and I don't have like dramatic events with all these people. And anytime I've had some sort of like dramatic falling out with someone, it's not been like a moment where I'm like, that was a great moment in my career. It's always weird. And sometimes it's one of the people. Sometimes people are dramatic. They like clicks. They like attention. They're just weirdos. I don't have any interest in crossing paths with people that are like dramatic like that. So when it comes to like their personal thing, that's for them. I don't know. They're both not me. They both act differently than me. They talk differently than me. They've said things to each other that I like. What do you want me to do about it? I can't. I'm not the mediator. I don't really care. I think if they want to get along, they could figure it out. If they don't, they could just bitch at each other for the next 10 years. I find it very childish, but I'm sure they both have bigger fish to fry. I think Candace probably doesn't even think about him that much anymore. And to be honest, I don't think he thinks about Candace that much, in the sense of neither one of them are going to stifle each other's career. So I'm sure Candace is on to different things, and he's, making jokes about it when he wants to. Someone said she basically brought him on her show for a hit piece, and they've been arguing since then. Once again, they could figure it out. I don't think it's the most interesting part of this thing. How many shekels would it take for Anomaly to kiss the wall? I was like, well, I'm trying to like read your emojis. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? How many shekels? I don't think there's enough shekels on planet Earth to get me to kiss the wall. I just don't want to. At this point, I'm not a wall kisser. If people want to kiss the wall, once again, that's if they feel inspired to do that, then you could go do it. But am I going to take money to kiss it? Is there a number that would work for me? No. Money is great in order to like buy things and afford things. It's definitely better to have it in some cases than not have it. But, I think you learn at a certain age or with certain trials and tribulations in your life that money, it can only do so much. And, there's an exchange for everything. So just like at a job, if you have to go to a certain place to make a certain amount of money, it's the same thing. Like if someone's offering you to kiss a wall or something, it's like there's probably something in return that they want. I don't think they're just paying for you to do it. So, I don't think the trade-off is really there. Someone said, like your honesty and no bullshit approach, rock on Anomaly. Thank you. And, I've spoken to Candace early on. Like I'm not like best friends with Candace or anything, but I know Candace. She knows me. We know each other, right? Nick, I've never met, but I've seen Nick since 2019. And I don't remember when I met Candace, maybe 2017, maybe 2018. I can't really remember. But in general, it's like these people have been in my world for a long time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, Candace, I've met maybe 8 years ago now. Nick, I've seen on the internet for 7 years. I guess the reason I brought that up is I like to listen to people, I guess unless they do something really egregious that is really like inspires me to say something, I'm more of an observer. It's like, let's see what she says. Let's see what he says. I'm not into personally attacking people. And if I ever talk about somebody personally, there's usually a reason. And I try to be really clear about why, like here's what I don't like about Ted Cruz. Not just like I woke up and F Ted Cruz. I don't know. It's just not my style, but I've seen them for a while. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. They've gone through different phases too, especially Candace. I mean, Nick, I'm sure has gone through different phases, but he's been pretty similar. Like I've met Candace a while ago. I've seen her do the Turning Point thing. I've seen her do the Daily Wire thing. I've seen her get fired from Daily Wire. I've seen her make a vaccine documentary that I didn't see it, but I liked the fact that she was, questioning that. I thought that was really cool. I've watched her during the pandemic. I feel like she never bent the knee during the pandemic. I watched her basically remove herself or get removed from Daily Wire and then start talking about this. And, like I've seen all the, like she's gone through a lot of different seasons to get to where she's at. So with like the Nick thing, I don't know, she'll figure it out and I'm not going to like interfere. Like I'm sure she'll get to a different point where maybe they'll think different of each other or maybe they'll be arch villains forever. I don't know, but I'm not trying to like step in and like it's not, her career has never been up to me, or it's not like for me to tell her what to do or think. Someone said, but when Anam talks, it's true. So most people get offended. hopefully it's not most people, but I think on Facebook for sure there's a lot of like Trumpy people that don't like any criticism of Trump for what it's worth. But someone said, "Do I think Candace is genuine?" I do. And I want to say this in the nicest way because I do think Candace is genuine. And with Tucker and Nick, like, I feel like they're pretty genuine too. I mean, I don't view Candace, Tucker, or Nick and look at them and be like they're all bad actors. Like I don't think that about any of them. I think they all are pretty much who they're telling you they are. But they're all different. They all have different character, like I won't even say flaws, but they're all different characters. Like Candace is not Tucker, Tucker's not Nick. You don't have to like where they're going or what they think, but I do think they're being who they are. It seems that way to me. But with that being said, like, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but you have to be crazy to get to their level. I've said this before and I really mean it. It's a crazy path to get as famous as Candace Owens. It's a crazy path to get as blacklisted and as famous as Nick. It's a crazy path to be Tucker Carlson, as famous as he's been for so long, and then come out and speak the truth and go do an interview in Iran and go do an interview in Russia. They're all pretty crazy. Michael Jordan was a maniac, but in a good way. So I feel like they're all genuine, but they're all, there's things I disagree with them all on. And I don't want to like hyper analyze what they're doing because they could do the same with me and be like, and point out all of, things that I'm not doing right or that they don't think I'm doing right. So I'm not, I try to treat others the way I want to be treated, but I do think that they're all hyper, just like, kind of wild people. And there's times I watch Nick and, I'm like, I totally disagree with that. Like, I didn't agree with his analysis of what Candace was doing. I don't agree with his analysis of Big Pharma. There's a lot of things I watch where I'm like, I think Nick is totally missing the ball on this one. There were a lot of people that I don't want to falsely label it, but like whatever you would call Nick, I think they call themselves like paleo conservatives, but if you want to use the term far right, whatever. They didn't understand the pandemic like at all. Not everybody, but a lot of people in that space, they were like complete, like during COVID until like 2022, none of them were saying anything of importance. They weren't really challenging the lockdown. They weren't challenging the mandates. Like they think about race and they think about, demographics and they think about America and Israel, but somehow pharmaceuticals just doesn't really like interest them to the point where they don't really think that much about them. Or I've heard some of them say like they think pharmaceuticals and American, doctors are great. I think American doctors are great, but I do think pharmaceuticals are insane. And also the medical industry is a little bit corrupt, like the schools. And, it's not like doctors are bad, but you understand what I'm saying? I feel like they have a massive blind spot for that topic. But I've never like attacked them, like screw you. It's more just like if you ask me my opinion, I'm like, I feel like they don't understand that topic at all. And I find it odd, I guess, that they can't figure that out. But it's a different mindset, it's a different thought process. And where you go to Tucker or something, there's been times where I feel like he has a little bit of a blind spot. And then with Candace, I think she's so, she's so hyper confident and so ambitious that, in this Charlie Kirk, investigation, I would say most of it, I'm like, dang, that's pretty interesting. And I'm like, that's good that she's doing it. And then other times I'm like, I feel like she's making you know, she's wrong about that, or she's like overhyping it, or but I'm not trying to be a critic of it. It's that, that's just how I see all of them. So I don't think they're not genuine. I think they're all genuine, but they all have different pros and cons, I guess. And I don't know. I mean, if you don't think they're genuine or you don't want to believe in them, it doesn't really matter to me. But I guess I they all do things that I wouldn't do, and they all say things that I wouldn't say. And it's not me condemning them, but I like to keep my distance because even though I think like I've never met Tucker, I don't know Nick, like I don't know these people. So as far as like people can be genuine and they could be who they are, but at the same time, it could be wise to just like not, to just watch and not fully like immerse yourself in it. Like I'm not like a fan. I'm not joining a crew. I'm just watching these people. So hopefully that answers your question of what I think, but I think they're all genuine to themselves, but I think they all have characteristics and do things that I'm like, I don't know about that. But maybe that's what makes it exciting. If Candace and Tucker and Nick did everything I wanted to do, then I don't think the world would be interesting, or people wouldn't be themselves. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There's definitely moments where it's not like I sit and say, "Oh, they're all great." I'm like, there's times where I'm like, "Why'd they do that? That was a little weird. I don't understand their angle on that. What's their intentions on that?" I ask these same questions that everybody asks. And if you have good discernment, you can figure it out. But I think there's a difference between being genuine and being right all the time, or being genuine and being, some people are genuinely who they are, but you realize like, hey, they're not the right fit for me, or I don't know if I trust, I don't know if I trust them. I'm like everybody else in politics. Like I can't, I don't really trust anybody. And it's not like, oh, I hate them and I'm so paranoid, but it's like, I don't need to trust Tucker. I don't need to trust Nick. I don't, it's like, I don't need to, it's not like they're my family. I don't know them. Candace, I've met a few times, but it's like, I don't know, time will tell everything. So I root for the best. I see the best in everybody, but I think we're all really responsible for what we say and do. And, I don't think anyone else should have to like bear the responsibilities. We can all not condemn each other and not try to like deplatform each other, but there's things that everyone's doing. Like, do I fully understand the Bridget McCrone case? I have no idea. I think it's hilarious. I think, but like, I don't know. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know if she has like, I don't know how Bridget McCrone was born. But Candace is really passionate about it. I don't know. I'm just kind of an observer. I'm like, this is hilarious. Let's see how it turns out. And if Candace wins the court case, that's really funny. I don't know. Like, but it's like, do I have to trust in it? I don't know about that. But I didn't watch the doc, so that's just like an example. You get what I'm saying? It's like everyone does stuff that is beyond me a little bit. Someone said, you're being mature about your perspective. It's good to leave space and not overjudge what looks like a mistake. Well, I mean, if you guys want to be honest too about like the Candace stuff, it's hard to tell what's a mistake or not, because she's like barreling ahead so much on the Charlie Kirk case that what might seem like a mistake might not be a mistake, And I'm not a judge. It's not like I'm here and I have to make a decision now. So like I said, I think there's things that I'll watch her do with the Charlie case where I'm like, dang, that was pretty compelling. And then other times I'll be like, that was not compelling, or that seemed like a reach to me. But you notice I say seem, because time will tell all. Could it be a reach? Could it not be a reach? Could it be right? Could it be wrong? I don't know. If I had to make a decision today, I'd write it down on a Scantron or something, but I don't have to. So it's more like, I'm going to pay attention to the Tyler Robinson case. I'm going to pay attention to all of these things. I don't know what Nick says about that or what Tucker says about that, but for me personally, I do find it weird how everybody's acting. They're like, if you question this, then you're questioning all of us. That's not necessarily true, but also I'm supposed to believe that this massive elk bullet did this and stopped at a bone. And I don't know, like, and these text messages and this towel, maybe it's definitely possible. The left hated Charlie, but personally, for me, I'm going to need a little bit more evidence for me to be like fully on board. So if the FBI and Turning Point or whoever's in charge of whatever, if they want to provide more evidence and a story that adds up a little more, they could do that. If they don't want to, or they feel like they don't need to, and they feel like they could win the court case with what they have, they could do that too. I'm only one person. I'm not on the jury. I don't, I'm not a Utah. It's not up to me. But just like a lot of people, I don't think they're winning a lot of people over. And if you want me to be honest too, I've talked to a lot of people, just like, anytime I talk to somebody random, like I'm not forcing my opinions on them. I want to hear what they like, who they listen to, what podcasters they listen to. I've heard from a lot of people recently that the Charlie situation like woke them up in a weird way, which I never would think it would. But like I've heard that from my friends who aren't left or right. They said, I never realized liberals were so hateful until Charlie died. Like that's what woke them up to the left. And I've also heard that people are waking up to a different topic over Charlie, just through how people are acting, their response to it. Like you can't just say, I'm not sketchy, I'm not sketchy. And everybody's like, oh, he's not sketchy. Like it's more of like a vibe. So it's like if people are acting really weird, then everybody kind of notices, like if you're actually seeking the truth. So, the whole narrative to me isn't adding up. And I'm not going to be honest. I mean, I am going to be honest. I'm not going to lie. Sorry. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are acting super odd. But like I said, I do understand that this industry is filled with sociopaths and narcissists. So them acting odd and vain and totally self-centered and being like weird, I feel like that's how everybody acts every day. So I don't see it as like, I don't know. I feel like this industry is really fake, and I wouldn't want to like work for one of these organizations and be like, all these people are my friends. Maybe they are, like I don't know, but I don't know. There's a lot of weirdo activity going on. Scott said you're a straight shooter, need more listeners. Well, we got like 725 now. It's not bad. We've had more, we've had less, but at this point, I don't know. I'm not really that concerned. I used to care way more for whatever reason. Like, oh my gosh, I only have 6,000 live viewers instead of 5,000. For whatever reason, I just don't care anymore. But I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Have I seen Larry? Larry, I don't know what that means. Someone said Candace wanted to have Nick in an ongoing basis, and then he acted like a bitch right after. Once again, dude, I don't want to talk. Like, if Candace and Nick want to get it together, they can. I'm over it. As far as like, well, he acted like a bitch to her. Okay, then tell him to stop. Or if she did something to him, it just comes across very childish. I don't know. I've said what I think about it. I don't find that interesting. Like their little beef, I think they could figure it out. And if they don't want to, maybe they're destined to like not be friends. Who cares? Did I ever reach out to Douglas McGregor? No, but I like him. I would love to talk to him. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been like seeking external interviews that much, except for people that I know and stuff. But thank you, Paula. Appreciate it. Says enjoy your perspective. Appreciate you. Someone said it's strange that Erica Kirk's father had ties to working for Raytheon Corporation for Israel. I don't know if that's true or not, but I will say this, and this is not. I did hear that her parents did do some sort of contracting work, but I don't know exactly who it was for, like what country they were doing it with. Like I don't know. Honestly, I probably even shouldn't say this, but like just as a consumer, right? And I think this is the issue that everybody deals with. And I'm going to try to say this in the nicest way possible, because I know it's going to be used against me, but it's whatever. When something so huge as like a Charlie situation happens, him getting assassinated, everybody becomes like scrutinized and it becomes like a big spectacle, right? Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's wrong. I know. I still haven't watched the Becoming Brigitte. I'm sorry. I haven't watched it. I know you super chatted me to watch it, but naturally Erica has become a bigger superstar after Charlie got killed. I'm not saying she wanted that. I'm not saying she likes it. I'm just saying it's literally the reality. Like Erica Kirk was like known amongst conservatives beforehand and conservative women at events. Now the whole world knows about Erica. It has times 100 her in the media, right? It's not necessarily a good thing, but it just is what it is. It's factually true. She's way bigger than she ever was. Fact. With that being said, people are going to look more into her and everyone around her now because they're 100 times more famous. Is that right? And because Charlie was killed. I think that's also a huge part of it. Is that right? I'm not saying it's right, but it's just the reality of the situation. So, like everyone else, I've also, seen the videos and stuff, and it doesn't mean anything, and I feel like rude doing this because I don't really want to be rude about it, but I think a lot of people have just been posting things that she's done. Like she was in some country music video, like making out with some dude and some country singer that nobody realized. She was in a reality show. Her parents worked, apparently had contracts or whatever. Let's just say this: she's a very ambitious woman, right? Clearly, she was trying really hard to be successful, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? She was in reality shows. She was like the vixen in a music video. Like she was definitely putting herself out there and trying to achieve some level of notoriety, or at least like she wasn't just sitting on the sidelines. She was like, "Hey, life is a highway. I'm gonna ride it all night long." In the words of Rascal Flatts in the Cars movie, but she was definitely like I didn't know all that about her and then I think she was in some sort of pageant thing too. She was a go-getter. She was ambitious, and then she met Charlie, and I'm sure she loved Charlie because Charlie was super ambitious and super successful, and those type of women are looking for ambitious, successful men, and she found one. And they should have been able to live happily ever after, and he should have been able to raise her kids and their kids. And I feel like that's the big tragedy here, is that Charlie got murdered. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, I've seen all the videos too. I don't know what to make of it, but I definitely think she was like a super super ambitious woman who was like doing a lot of stuff. I don't know, it's like you could twist that any way you want, but some people will twist it further than others. For me, I guess I don't really think about it that much, but let's just see what happens with this court case and the evidence, and really like let's just see who she is. I don't really know her, so how does she run Turning Point? What are her views? Or is she like Charlie? Do we even know what Charlie would have been like? Because now he's dead and everybody wants to fight over his legacy. It's like a no-win situation. I don't like overthink it, but I've seen all the same videos people have seen where it's definitely like a more interesting and compelling narrative than if she was just some random chick. She's got all these videos. Her parents were connected. Does that mean anything? Not necessarily, but the unfortunate situation is Charlie was murdered, so now everybody's hyper analyzing everything. I don't know. Someone said anomalies, Mister. I don't know. I guess I've said it too much. Make of it what you will, but of course I have my own opinions about it and just seeing stuff. Like, yeah, that's worth noting. It's worth keeping, you know, in my head, I guess, as things get revealed. But I think she's in a tough situation because clearly she always wanted attention. In my opinion, you don't become a video vixen and go on a reality show if you don't want anybody to look at you. Like clearly she's always wanted attention, and now she has more attention than ever, but for the wrong reasons. It's kind of like and her husband's dead and her kids don't have a father. Like it's like a shitty situation where it's like she's getting one part of her life that I'm sure at one point she wanted, but not in the way she wanted it. So like what's she supposed to do? She's supposed to completely ignore it and just go ghost. Do people think she should have waited longer? She did too much too soon. Like everyone can have an opinion, but I don't know. It's like I don't think there's anything she could have done to please people. Personally, I guess if I were like a PR person, maybe I would have been like, not so many podcasts so quickly, give it a month or so. But if you don't want to give it a month and you're inspired to talk, then that's on you. I don't know. Everybody could be an armchair quarterback, but I guess I see what people are seeing. I see what people are saying, and I see all the same stuff. I've seen the videos. I've seen the breakdowns. I've seen the conspiracies, but for right now, they're all just like hypotheticals based on a lot of evidence. One thing for sure that I will say is Charlie was as deep as you could get in the game. He had a wife that was connected, that done a lot of stuff. His entire network was people doing a lot of stuff. He knew politicians. He wrote letters to foreign leaders. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just say there's two different ways to play the game. I'm going to do a podcast, hang out with my bros, and not really get that deep in it. And then other people where they're like, I'm going to get as deep as you could get in it. I don't know why I said it like that, but Charlie was a guy, like he was so deep in the game. He was deep with the donors. He was deep with the politicians. He was deep with foreign leaders. He was deep with random rabbis that would Zoom call him apparently and tell him what to say. Like Charlie's wife was someone who had done a lot. Like, I don't know, he was all in. He was all into the game. And not that this has anything to do with it, but it's similar to like they'll talk to rappers, like street rappers, and they always say like, bro, you could be loyal to the streets, but the streets aren't always loyal to you. Like you could be as thug as you want, but the streets don't care. I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened to Charlie, but I'm just saying like he was just deep in the game. And I think at bare minimum, you know, I don't know if you're supposed to say this, but at bare minimum, everyone should be able to come to the conclusion that he probably his security didn't do a good job or he should add more security. I don't even think that should be controversial, where it's like for how famous and successful and deep Charlie was in the game, he's going to be like a future president. Shouldn't they have looked at the roofs? Shouldn't like, you know, how many security did he even have? Someone said Ian Carroll shouted you out. You should get him on. I do want to give Ian an interview sometimes. I want to give him like a fair interview because, you know, I'm sure me and Ian could talk about a lot of stuff, but I feel like everybody talks about Ian and who he was and where he came from or whatever. I kind of want to do like an interview where I let Ian tell his own story because I don't know it either, but I want to give like a fair, solid interview about that. So that's cool. But yeah, I would say for Charlie, he was just so deep in the game, so deep. And I don't know. When you're that deep and what's the one guy that like now I see him all over the place, Frank Turek or whatever. I thought he was a security guard. He's not. He's just a pastor. Um Here's my question is like why didn't Charlie have more security? Cuz at first people were like, "Oh, he's a security guard this and that." Like but he wasn't. He's just a pastor, a friend of Charlie's. Charlie was so famous. Like, why? Like, I don't know. Why didn't like? Shouldn't they have had a bunch? Maybe not. I don't know. Like, I guess when Trump speaks, you don't really see the security. So maybe they were there. You know, like when Trump speaks, you don't see all the Secret Service. They're just there. Maybe Charlie had a lot, and I just wasn't aware of it. But I don't know. It's upsetting. It's just a shitty situation, and now everybody's asking questions, and I'm just like underwhelmed by the security. Like the security he had should have been bigger. I'm not saying that's Frank's fault. I'm just saying in general, I don't. And now I guess like Candace is talking about the McCoy kid and they're like, to me, that's not my role. I'm not trying to like question what everyone was doing or how they were doing it. But that's what she's doing. That's what everyone else is doing. So I don't really know what to say about it because unless it really catches my eye as something that I feel like is really meaningful, then I kind of just like tune it out. So why did he not have an ambulance? Another good question, right? He probably should have had a lot of things. But I guess hindsight's 2020, and sometimes you just got to roll the dice. And he was rolling the dice. I don't know, Mister. I don't know, as that guy said. What is my opinion of the interview with Nick? Well, I already went over it. Personally, I thought it was a good interview. I thought it was Overton window shifting as far as just Tucker speaking to him. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I liked hearing his story in full. I don't doubt it because that is what they do to people if you question anything around Israel. I like the back and forth where Tucker was trying to like wrap his head around why Nick says certain things. They talked about women, which was kind of funny, but it's like, who cares what Nick thinks about women? No offense, but it's like Tucker's talking about women. They were like arguing with women. One guy's married. He's like 55. The other guy's single, like in his 20s. And it's like, of course, they're going to have a different view. But even that was kind of interesting. I'm not trying to like say anything. It's just like that was out of the whole interview. That part was like, I could have fast forwarded through that. But overall, no, I mean, I enjoyed it. But you can go back and listen to the full analysis if you want. Someone said Charlie owned his security team. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what goes into those type of events, but for me, I just know I'm not important enough for any security to care that much. So I've been paranoid about events for years because I don't know. I'm not Charlie Kirk. So no, like if I have security somewhere, I don't really even have security. Like it's like some bootleg, like fat dude who's 70 who can't even walk straight. So it's like, yeah, that guy's not going to help me. So, but for Charlie, you know, he had his own security. I guess he definitely had better security than most people, but not enough. You know, I don't know. Like, I guess I don't know what's enough. How do you have enough? How many people would stop that? Somebody looking at the roofs. Mandy said, I thank the anomaly for waking me up a long time ago. I remember getting upset for not backing Trumpy Wumpy, and then I looked it up. Sure enough, Anom was right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm not trying to ruin people's parade or anything, but I think Trump needs to be looked into and just needs to be spoken about honestly. And I think the more honest Trumpy Wumpy supporters are about Trumpy Wumpy, the better of a leader he'll be. But it's fascinating, just like the daily with Trump. He's like, Reagan loved tariffs. Canada deleted Canada. Venezuela regime change. We got to beat the drug boats. It's like, I don't know. I just tune out of what they're saying now because it's like every day is this fake theater between the left and the right. And it's like the left is wrong, but like Trump's also wrong, but it's hard to explain to anybody because then they just hate you. So I kind of just like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what excites me. I like doing this live stream. There's certain things I like doing, but like the daily Trumpy Wumpy battle between the left, it does not excite me anymore. Have I watched Snake Eyes, the movie? No, I heard the plot is really eerily similar to what happened though, or something, right? Is that right, Becky? I saw something about that, which is very strange, but I didn't see it. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. People were saying they talked about pornography. I mean, I thought that was an interesting part too, as far as like the problems with it, and I guess it is a problem with the youth, and I think my generation, like the internet was given to my generation when we were like 8 to 10 years old, and now the younger generation has like smartphones and cell phones. But I do think I think the problem of pornography, people don't fully understand it because back in the day, it was like, you had to be a real freak to get pornography. Like you had to be one of those guys that like went to the store and like got a VHS and you're like, I'm going all, it's like, all right, bro, relax. You had to be a real sicko. But sorry, if you're a boomer who watched porn back in the day, I don't mean to call you sick. Maybe it was what they were all doing back then. But then you had like Playboy magazines, and it's like, oh, look at this chick. Dude, nobody would even care about a Playboy magazine now because it's so antiquated. But my generation was given like internet when we were like 8 years old. And that's the same with the generations now. It's just like easier to get the internet, more accessible, faster at your hands. And I think the problem with pornography in America has like ramped up and escalated to such an extreme amount that not a lot of people really talk about it because it's like weird and embarrassing. But they talked about that. I thought it was interesting. Super chat 250 Dop. What are you from? Doppler? You doppelganger? Do I know the Earth is flat? Do I know the Earth is flat for sure? No. Am I a round earther? Am I one of those roundy boys like Neil deGrasse Fed Bison Tyson and Bill Nye, the Democratic Party spy guy? I'm not a roundy. I'm not a flatty, but I'm not a roundy. I'm an observer. So I can't, like, if I had to bet on it, I can't guarantee the earth is flat or round, but I have my suspicions. Let's put it that way. What is DOP, by the way? DOP currency. Oh, Dominican. What's up, bro? What's up, my Dominican bro? All right, 250. That's 389. It looks like a lot, but it's not. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, my Dominican homie. I'll try to sail from Dominican to Antarctica and I'll figure out if it's flat or not. But right now, I'm on the fence and I'm not ashamed to admit it. But if I were to jump off the fence towards the flatties and the roundies, I'd jump with the flatty patties. That's just where I'm at. But positive nitrogen balance said Charlie's security on the day of his assassination was So I don't think this is true, my man. I think he used to use Schaefer's security group, but I don't think he used them at the end of his career. You have to look that up, but everyone's saying that because at one point he did use Schaefer's security group, but I actually don't think he was using them that day. I think he switched from them. But look that up if you want. But do look it up because if you think it was that, but you haven't looked it up, look it up and come back and tell me if that was it. I think from what I remember, because I actually was looking this stuff up weeks ago, I think he used to use them for a year or two, and then he just switched to a new one from what I read, but I could be wrong. Someone said, awesome, you're not a Glober. I'm not a Glober to share. That's a UFC joke. Very subtle one for those. But yeah, the globe, it's an interesting theory. It could be. It definitely could be a globe. But, I don't know. Like they got to let me fly over Antarctica and, see like I need to go on an exploration to really figure it out. Right now, I've been lied to about so much and, there's been a lot of sneakery involved on this planet. I got to go check out the poles for myself to really be a glober. But right now, I wouldn't call myself a flat earther because I don't think it's flat. I'd call myself of more like I'm this is gonna sound so corny. A dome curious. That sounds so cringe, but I'm like the dome is curious to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it a dome? It's not flat. I don't even think flat earth is good branding, but like, is it a snow globe? Is it the Truman Show? Is it a oblate spheroid, as Neil deGrasse says? I don't know. Someone said it's a globe, you dummy. That's what they always say. We're fighting Al Qaeda, you dummy. We got to go fight Bashir al-Assad, dummy. We got to go get the terrorists, dummy. Trump's the best, dummy. We got 15 days to slow the spread, dummy. Put on a mask, dummy. Get your vaccine, you dummy. What are you, anti-science? Could be a globe. Could be a globe. Definitely a lot of globes around. Telling you that. Could be. Definitely could be. Could be a dome. Could be a globe. Definitely could be a globe. Like I got some traveling to do. I gotta, I need a propaganda tour to I almost said Afghanistan, Antarctica. Same thing, Afghanistan and Antarctica. I need a propaganda tour to Antarctica to really set me straight. Who do I think the next president should be? I don't know. I mean, should and will be are two different things. So I try not to deal in hypotheticals because it's like it doesn't matter. I think out of who has a good chance, it's going to be Vance. Take a chance with Vance. Vance has a good chance. Newsom's going to run. AOC might run. I don't think Thomas Massey would run, but that would be interesting. I like Thomas Massey. I like Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's really it. But I've said this for a while, and I this is my prediction that most people will disagree with and think I'm being a shill, but I'm just being honest. I'm starting to notice that the Zionists do not like JD Vance because they think or know that JD Vance is more like a non-interventionalist, and he's not like, he plays ball with Zionists because he has to, but I don't think JD Vance is as shilly as Trump, and I don't think JD Vance, if he has free will, really cares about that. So my prediction is JD Vance will be the choice of the Republican establishment and the donors, some of them, and some of them are going to really rail against JD Vance if he truly is non-interventionalist in that sense. So we'll see. Like, I know a lot of people everybody thinks it's like all or nothing, which I understand, because it's like if you're going to sell out on one topic, you might sell out on every topic. Someone said Rubio. They're definitely going to, I bet Rubio runs too. And here's the thing. If the establishment is pushing Rubio over Vance, behind closed doors, Vance is not like totally a shill. And I know he's a sellout on some topics. He works with Palantir. I'm not saying that JD Vance is some sort of like free hero or anything, but I get the inkling that they don't want Vance. I think they're going to try to do a Vance Rubio switcheroo because, once again, folks, they don't want 95% compliance. They don't want 99% compliance. They want 100% compliance. But with that being said, I like Thomas Massey. I like Marjorie. I don't know. I can't really think of anybody else I like. So, like, in a perfect world, there'd be some candidate that was like jacked and 8 feet tall, and he looked like a gargoyle, and he said America first. That guy doesn't exist. So it's going to be like Vance or Rubio or Newsom or AOC or something. And it's going to suck. And Kamala's going to run again probably, and she's going to make a fool of herself again and then get drunk and do SNL things or whatever. I don't know. It's like whatever I want it to be, it's not going to be. So I'm not even going to get my hopes up like Thomas Massey 2028. He's not going to run. And I don't think he even wants to run. So who could possibly run that could possibly be good? I don't know. I really think it's going to come down to Vance, and nobody is going to like that, or some people will, but truthers are going to feel like, oh, Vance is a sellout to Palantir, which is probably true. So I don't know, like my thoughts don't really matter as far as like what I want. I don't know. I guess I would like to see somebody with charisma, I don't know, that comes out of nowhere that like actually starts, pulls an AOC and starts challenging. Could AOC run? Should she even run? I don't know. But Fuentes is not going to be president. He's got to be like 35. So could he possibly be one day? He could try. I mean, if he went from blacklisted to Tucker Carlson interview in 8 years, like what else could possibly happen? I don't know. But as far as like, as far as like this next election, definitely not. I'm going to end on this note, not because you said it, but just because I want to keep this under 2 hours. Someone said, Vance gives me the creeps, can't be a real Christian with a Hindu wife. That's one thing I will say without being disrespectful. I wouldn't say he gives me the creeps, but if he gives you the creeps, that's your, your female like vibe. I like JD Vance, but if you're a Christian husband, and I don't want to come across as a hater, but I have thought this. If you're a Christian husband and your wife is Hindu, doesn't that mean that your wife doesn't really listen to you? Like if you believe that Jesus is Lord and Messiah and Christianity is the truth and that's what's important, and you can't even convince your wife to agree with you, there's something there. There, like you said, there's something there. Like it's a sign of like a weak husband. And I'm like, once again, listen, I'm not the bearer of great relationships here or anything, but I don't think I would want my wife to not share the same religion as me or just completely reject my religion. Like if you can't convince your wife to do it, how could you convince anyone else? Or like, or like, why doesn't your wife want to listen to you? Am I wrong? Someone said that's a crazy statement. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Someone said his kid's name is Vivek. That's kind of crazy, but I guess that's like a popular Indian name. So I'm sure he didn't name him after Vivek Ramaswamy. Either way, I'm not trying to overanalyze his kids or anything. That's kind of, I feel like, lowbrow or at least like below the belt. Above the belt, though, or at the belt, I don't know. If I'm dating a girl and she's like, I'm Hindu, I don't believe in Jesus, I don't believe in your religion. It's like, okay, I don't hate you or anything, but I feel like a strong Christian husband and a strong Christian man should be able to convince his wife to join him, And if not, to me, that's like the weirdest red flag with JD Vance. Obviously, like the Palantir stuff and him being like a politician, yeah, that's like an obvious red flag. But outside of like that, to me is even like if his wife converted and was like, yeah, we're all Christian, but it's like you're Christian, your wife's not Christian. I don't know. It's a little off for me. Someone said, first time watching, I'll sub. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for that. Mahalo. Mahalo, mahalo. That means thank you in Hawaiian. And I did it in Hawaiian because she threw up the shaka, but you guys get it. Someone said, Candace and Nick are so much alike. I wonder why she gave him such a hostile interview. I hear what you're saying. I mean, I guess she probably doesn't feel like she did give him a hostile interview. He feels like she gave him a hostile interview. I don't know their past of why she might have done that or why I don't know. Like I didn't see the full interview, but from clips I saw, it definitely was a different vibe than she would do with some other people, but that's once again, that's for her and them to figure out. It's not my responsibility as like a man to like wonder why they're doing what they're doing. But if you're like a fan of Candace and you want to know why, it's worth asking her in a super chat or something. I don't know. Only she knows why she did what she did. And I'm sure she has a reason or a thought process behind it. But I guess it's becoming less and less interesting. I like to weigh in on stuff and analyze it, but it's like, I'm starting to feel like a substitute teacher or like a like the recess like teacher where it's like I have to like deal with these people's problems. It's like I don't know, see a therapist. I have no idea. Someone said if you're a real Christian, no way you let your kids be raised by a Hindu. I mean, some would say that, others wouldn't, but I do think I do think it's weird. It is weird to have like two different religions, husband and wife. I do think that. Um, I've met a husband and wife before where they're like, I watch Fox, my wife watches CNN. It's like, do you hate each other? Like, I don't know. Like, once again, I try not to talk about this too much because my job is to like facilitate a successful relationship, not talk about everybody else's. With that being said, these are my thoughts. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud. Like, how could you have a wife that watches CNN and you watch Fox News? How does that work? Does it, maybe someone here knows? How does that work? I don't know. That seems like it can't work. Same with like, I'm a Christian, she's a Hindu. I'm sure it could work in a sense, but at the same time, it almost feels like she doesn't respect you or something, or she's like wearing the pants in the relationship where it's like, you know, how does that even work? I don't get it. Like, shouldn't you be able to come to the same conclusion as a family or no? I don't know. I mean, I've met people too where like they celebrate like Christmas and Hanukkah. It exists, you know what I'm saying? Like I've co-parenting where it's like she's Jewish, he's Christian, you do both. I've heard it before. It's not like the first time I've ever heard it. I guess when it's like the president though, you know what I'm saying? Like you're leading the country as a Christian, but your wife doesn't even follow your lead as a Christian. But you're going to lead the country as a Christian, even though your wife doesn't follow your lead on that. There's something there for sure. It's definitely very nitpicky, but at the same time, I see it. I've thought about that. I've just never talked about it because I was like, I don't know. I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to like weigh in on this unless it like, actually has like a purpose or like a moment where I don't want to just bring it up randomly and be like, I was thinking this one day, but you brought it up, so you started it. You started it. You did it. If I'm gonna snitch on you if this comes up and they're like, Anomaly, why'd you say that? It was Abigail. It wasn't me. She started it. I don't know what happened. I just wanted to follow the cool kids crowd. She made me do it. She blackmailed me. She said, I'm never giving you super chats again unless you agree with me. And I said, okay, I don't understand the dynamic between that. I'm just joking. That didn't happen. But appreciate y'all. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Let me tell you something real quick, folks. The hat I have on right here and these two, these are all hats. And I just want to be real trail with y'all real quick, which means real and gangstanology. If y'all don't speak that, I got a PhD, but that's okay. It's an American flag right there. This is made in the USA, custom made. They said we have USA hats that we could throw a flag on, but the materials are not in the USA. Do you want those? And I said, no. I said, I want everything made in the USA. Can you do that? And they were, well, yeah, we could do that. But, it's going to cost extra and it's going to be custom. We're going to have to make them from scratch. And I said, make them from scratch, lady. No, I wasn't even a lady. And also this deal was facilitated by my guy, my business partner, not me. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. This is true. This part is true. That whole thing was a little exaggerated, but made in America, materials made in America, custom made. God bless hats. God is great hats. It has an American flag. It's hard to even get this stuff. They literally had to custom make it from scratch from USA made materials. These are the highest quality hats I've ever had. They're really nice. We got God bless, God is great, and God bless, black and white. And I bought them in bulk. I had them stitched. Best quality hats I've ever had, definitely on this note. And if you want a beanie, I don't know where my beanie is. But I got black and blue beanies at dreamrare.com for the winter or the autumn season. Thank you guys so much. It's a great way to support, and you get something out of it. You're not just giving me money because I'm trying to provide value. And, there's a lot of things I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to slow it down and figure out how to do everything because every day I'm like, I got a million things to do. So, I got a lot of plans and goals and dreams like everybody else. But for now, I don't have that many dreams and goals and plans. I really just have these hats. That's my life right now. So if you want to support dreamrare.com, spelled like this, I'm going to put it on the thing. That's what I'm doing right now. For the next month or two, I'm a hat salesman while I get my dreams and goals in my life together. But in the meantime, dreamrare.com, check it out. Get yourself one of these hats, custom made in the USA for me, stitched. You already know it's the real deal. Anomaly's not selling this made in Japan merch or China. No disrespect to Japan, but the merch just doesn't come from there. Appreciate you guys. Dream Rare podcast ended now. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Just to, I have like a minute left. So everybody has a lot of opinions about everybody, obviously in politics. I think that's understandable. I'm always just looking for value and just trying to see where things are going. So I talked about it earlier, but the Overton window shift of like, you're blacklisted from politics from saying this. I'm blacklisted from politics for saying this basically. And then that kind of becoming mainstream to the point where Tucker's talking about it, even if it's in a different way with a different person who, once again, I don't know these people. I don't know what their motives are, etc. I just, I can't look at it as any other way than a win just because, it's basically trying to bring something back that has been blacklisted and demonetized back to the table. And we got to give credit to Elon Musk as well, because, I don't think any of this is happening without Elon Musk. And I don't know what he's doing, or he's sending off rockets and stuff. But when nobody in the GOP was actually doing anything, Elon was facilitating Twitter and allowing people to speak on Twitter. So I think he's really like the catalyst that really brought this to the mainstream. There's other people smaller, but we needed somebody rich who could actually do something. And that wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't Trump. And it wasn't like Mark Zuckerberg at first. It was Elon. So, I don't know if that's what he meant to do, but he allowed free speech way more than, I think a lot of people wanted. But